It feels like AI is dominating the headlines these days, right? I mean, every time you turn around, it's AI is going to end the world, AI this, AI that. But how much of that is really something we need to worry about? You asked for a deep dive on this, so we're digging into this Medium article by Don Lim. It's a pretty interesting take because he basically calls out some pretty big names in AI.
Oh yeah, he names some names, which is always kind of fun. Like Jeffrey Hinton, for example. Hinton's done a lot of groundbreaking work in AI, but now he's making headlines by saying that AI is going to become more intelligent than all humans combined. And Lim is basically like, hold on a second, is there any actual proof for that?
So when you say Lim is pushing back, does that mean he's saying that this whole AI thing is just hype?
Not exactly. It's more nuanced than that. He uses this really interesting analogy, though. He talks about the energy it would take to actually replicate the conditions that created life on Earth in the first place. And get this, it's a staggering number. Like $39.4 quintillion. To put that into perspective, that's more than the entire global stock market. Way more.
Okay, so that's a crazy amount of money, but I'm not quite seeing the connection to AI surpassing human intelligence.
So Lim's point is that intelligence, the way we understand it, it's not just this abstract thing. It's deeply connected to energy. Think about the human brain. It's incredibly complex, but it's also super energy efficient. Even then, it took billions of years of evolution to get to this point. To think that AI, even with how fast it's advancing, could just leapfrog over that kind of timescale without a comparable energy source. Well, Lim compares it to comparing a firecracker to the sun.
So are we maybe getting a little ahead of ourselves? Like we're kind of attributing these human-like qualities to AI, and that's where the hype comes in.
Yeah, exactly. Lim argues that we tend to anthropomorphize AI, giving it human-like motivations and consciousness, when in reality, even the most advanced algorithms we have right now are, honestly, way simpler than an ant's brain. But because we see these AI systems communicating, learning, getting better at stuff, it's easy to jump to those sci-fi scenarios of machines taking over.
Which leads to that other big fear, right? The whole, we built this thing, but what if we can't control it? What if we can't turn it off?
And that's where Lim makes a point that I actually found kind of reassuring in a weird way. He says shutting down even the most advanced AI system would be orders of magnitude less complicated than, say, resolving a minor human conflict. We already have the off switch, so to speak. The real issue isn't so much about AI becoming uncontrollable, but about figuring out why we're so afraid of losing control in the first place.
So maybe it's not really about the AI itself, but more about us. Like what this fear of losing control says about us as humans.
Right. It's a really interesting question to think about. And Ling kind of hits on that. He suggests that maybe, just maybe, our anxieties about AI come from a deeper place. Like maybe we're insecure about our own place in the world, or our relationship with technology in general, or even just like what it means to be conscious. We see AI doing these things that seem human, and it makes us question what makes us special, what makes us human.
So we're basically taking all our own baggage and projecting it onto this like blank slate of technology.
Kinda, yeah. Like, Lim talks about how we train AI using all these sci-fi tropes, those super intelligent assistants who can predict your every need and solve all your problems. And that kind of sets us up with these unrealistic expectations of what AI can actually do, at least for now.
It's like we've all been watching too many sci-fi movies and we think that's how it's supposed to be in real life.
Exactly. And that's where Lim brings in this really cool quote from Oscar Wilde. He said, "Most people are other people. Their thoughts are someone else's opinions. Their lives a mimicry, their passions a quotation." And Lim connects that to AI, suggesting that a lot of what we think is intelligence in AI is actually just a reflection of the data we've given it. It's like a mimicry of human thought instead of actual understanding.
So that leads to the big question, right? Can AI ever actually think for itself? Or is it always going to be a reflection of the people who created it?
That is the million-dollar question. Philosophers and scientists are still trying to figure that one out. I mean, to really dig into that, we'd need a whole other deep dive. But I think Lim's point is that we often mix up mimicry with real intelligence, and that causes a lot of fear and confusion.
Okay, so let's say AI isn't about to wake up and decide to take over the world. What about the possibility of humans misusing it? I mean, we've already seen how AI can be used to make those deep fakes, spread misinformation, even automate people's jobs out of existence. Those are real concerns.
Absolutely, those are real issues. But Lim argues that when we frame it as this battle between humans and AI, we're kind of missing the point. The real problem isn't the technology itself, but the decisions humans make about how to develop it and use it. AI is just a tool, right? And just like any other tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
So it all comes back to human responsibility then.
Exactly. We can't just sit around waiting for the AI apocalypse or some perfect future where robots solve all our problems. We need to be involved in how AI is developed, making sure it aligns with our values and actually helps make the world a better place.
Which brings us back to those big names in AI and their, let's say, passionate warnings about the future. If the future of AI depends on what humans do, why are some of these experts painting such a scary picture?
That's where Lim's analysis gets really interesting. He suggests that for some of these AI pioneers, stirring up fear and uncertainty could be a way to make themselves even more powerful.
You mean like a power grab?
It's a possibility. Lim points out that when they position themselves as these doomsayers, these figures become the authorities on AI. They're the ones with the answers, right? And that gives them control over the narrative. They get more funding, they influence policy.
So it's like they're saying, we're the only ones who can save you from the AI apocalypse, so you better listen to us.
Exactly. But to be fair, Lim does acknowledge that it's not always so black and white. Some of these people might actually be concerned about the dangers of AI, even if their predictions are a little extreme.
So it's not always a simple case of good intentions versus selfish motives.
No, it's usually a lot more complicated than that. But I think Lim's main message is that we have to be aware of these potential biases when we're listening to these big pronouncements from experts. Just because someone is an expert doesn't mean they're always right or that they don't have their own agenda.
So how do we navigate this whole landscape of hype and misinformation? How do we know who to trust and what to believe?
That's where critical thinking comes in. Lim really encourages readers to question everything, consider different viewpoints, and look for evidence to support those viewpoints. Don't be afraid to challenge the status quo, even if it means disagreeing with the so-called experts.
To be informed skeptics, not blind followers.
Exactly. And that's why I think articles like Lim's are so important. They make us think critically and start these conversations about the future of AI.
It's about taking back our own power in a world where it feels like technology is moving so fast.
Exactly. We're not just along for the ride with AI. It's up to all of us to decide what role it plays in our lives.
So if we wanted to summarize Lim's message, what would be the key takeaways?
Don't believe everything you hear, even if it comes from an expert. Always think about the source, look for evidence, and remember that AI is a tool. How it's used is up to us.
It's like those exaggerated headlines we see everywhere. They're designed to grab our attention, and sometimes they're trying to grab our wallets too.
Exactly. We need to be a little skeptical, right?
Yep.
We need to understand that this is a complicated issue with a lot of different sides to it.
So where do we go from here? If the future of AI is still being written, what can we do as individuals to help shape it? It's kind of like we're standing at a fork in the road, and the choices we make about AI today are going to determine which path it goes down, you know?
That's a powerful way to think about it. And the interesting thing is, Lim actually ends on a pretty hopeful note. He reminds us that it's not like we're facing this, single all-powerful AI that's calling all the shots. In reality, AI is way more spread out, which means there's room for all of us to have an impact on how it develops.
So if we want to make sure our voices are heard in this whole AI conversation, where do we even start?
Well, for one thing, don't let the techie stuff scare you off. You don't need a degree in computer science to learn about AI. There are tons of resources out there that break it down in a way that anyone can understand. Online courses, articles, books, heck, even podcasts.
Right, knowledge is power, as they say. The more we understand AI, the better decisions we can make about it.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to talk about it with other people, even if you don't agree on everything. Have those conversations, even if they're a little uncomfortable sometimes, about the ethical side of AI, about how it can be helpful, about the risks we need to watch out for.
It's about going beyond just the headlines and really thinking about how AI is going to affect our lives.
Right. Absolutely. And remember, this isn't just about technology, it's about our values, what we think is important, the kind of world we want to live in, and the world we want to leave for our kids.
And Lim ends on a note of, I guess you could say, cautious optimism, which I think is a good place to be.
Yeah.
He makes the point that no one person, no one company, no one country can control the future of AI. It's a team effort, and we're all on the team.
And that's actually really empowering when you think about it. We're not just bystanders watching this technology happen to us. We have the power to shape it.
So to everyone listening, as you go out there and keep learning about AI, keep this in mind. Don't just take the headlines at face value. Dig a little deeper. Ask questions. And most importantly, talk about it. The future of AI is in our hands. Thanks for joining our deep dive this week.